Heffron Show. We're talking about IPFW Volleydon Volleyball. And we're going to run down the Great Lakes Valley Conference Tournament coming up next week, plus recap last week. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more right after this.
Wake up all the teachers, time to teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen to what you have to say.
The power of teaching.
World won't get no better if we're just
The power to wake up young minds. The power to wake up the world. Teachers have that power. Reach for the power. Teach. I'm Edward James Olmos, and we're recruiting new teachers. Call 1-800-45-TEACH.
This is the increasingly competitive world we live in, and this is the country we want ahead of the competition. These are the people we'll be depending on to keep this country ahead of the competition. These are the colleges and universities we're relying on, for the people we're depending on to keep this country ahead of the competition. So if you want America to stay #1 in the world, do something about it. Give to the college of your choice.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Matt DeLong along with Coach Tim Heffron, and we're talking about IPFW women's volleyball. And Coach, this week's going to be a big one. We're going to talk about that here in just a few minutes. But first, we're going to talk about last week. Had a few GLVC teams in, and actually a couple teams that you may not see next week. Both teams qualifying for the GLVC tournament in Indianapolis in Northern Kentucky. So why don't you take us through Indianapolis? It was a 3-0 win for you. So why don't you take us through that match and positives, negatives you came out of there with?
Well, we certainly thought we had an excellent preview situation for the tournament in that these matches don't count necessarily in our seeding or anything to do with the tournament, but we possibly could see both teams. We possibly may see neither team next weekend. In any event, it's nice to see how you stack up against teams at the end of the year and see how much you've improved against how much they've improved. And it's pretty evident in both cases that we've improved more than the other teams have improved, just was the case last year. So we're pretty pleased with the end results of the weekend on overall play and how we're playing right now. When you look at the individual details of the Indianapolis match, they had just got done playing Ashland the night before, went 5 with them. Tough match with Ashland, and maybe a little bit drained or whatever. But basically, we went out and played our game, and we stopped what I would consider shooting yourself in the foot. In other words, what happens, at least earlier in the year with our team, is that we'll get on a roll, and it's us who stops the roll. It's like we make a mistake or we let them off the hook type of thing. Whereas we're trying to once we get on a roll, we're trying to have the other team earn their way out of it so that we don't end up giving away a momentum wave or whatever you want to call it, because there's certainly a number of momentum shifts in a game. And it's just a matter of how long can you ride on a wave and how are you going to get off of it. Because you're going to get off of it, let's make the other team earn their way out of it and not give it away. And so that's exactly what we found this weekend, was that we were able to sustain momentum waves right through the end of a game. And as evidenced in the match against Indy, when we played them, the first game, we only rotated 3 positions. The game took, I think, less than 10 minutes or something like that. We have 3 different servers, and I believe Heather Teagarden picks up the ball. I forget where it was, somewhere around 3-6 or something like that, that we're up 6-3. And she serves out the game, you know, and not only does she serving well, but she plays some defense, which we're going to show on videotape. She basically is doing exactly what we want on defense, and our type of defense is a perimeter-style defense where you don't put anybody into the middle of the court. You're leaving them outside around the block is what they want to do. We want our perimeter people to see the ball outside of the blocker's hands. That sounds real easy to do. It's extremely difficult to discipline yourself from running into the middle of the court all the time. As young players do, they just always run right into the middle and they get in trouble. Now all of a sudden they have to backtrack or the ball's flying over their head or something like that. And in the video clip that we have from, I believe, 9 on, we're at point 9, Heather Teagarden makes a number of digs that are perimeter-style digs, where she's disciplined enough to stay outside of the block, and she digs the ball and we transition out of it, as well as serving and all those kinds of things. That's the kind of leadership that we're getting out of Heather in these kinds of matches, and one of the major reasons why we're able to function at this new plateau that our team has reached. In that sense of playing volleyball.
Well, why don't we go to that video clip right now? This is against the University of Indianapolis just last weekend. So let's take a quick look-see at that one.
And you can see Heather's serving the ball. She serves out the game here. Really makes some tough serves, force them into some bad passes, and here you go with staying disciplined enough to stay outside of the block, and the ball goes off the block, which she digs up. And once again, we just wait until the ball dies on them. You've got to stay outside the block and then react to the ball, which is extremely hard to do as a defensive player. And obviously Heather's had enough training now that she can hang outside the block without cheating in or whatever you want to call it. Makes another good serve. And it goes off the block, and there she goes again. Great transition, real quick transition by Andy, but again, it comes from the pass and staying outside that block, because their hitter's trying to wipe the ball off our block out of bounds, and Heather sees that and stays out there so she can get it.
So Heather just on a roll here.
Just
you
on
see
a
another
roll.
great block there. It's Reichart and Lubin, it looked
yeah.
like.
So we're just rolling, and this is that kind of momentum where in the past we've ended up serving the ball out of bounds or not making the dig or whatever, and in this particular case we just keep going and keep doing the things right that we need to keep doing. They're having trouble passing, and so, you know, serve the ball in again. You know, that seems to be the catchphrase there at the end of the year here is just keep pouring it on. They're trying to break the momentum with the substitute or the timeouts and all the things that they try to do, but that did not phase our psyche as we just kept pushing and pushing and pushing.
Just like Heather's serving just all over the court as well.
Yeah, there's Heather with another dig, you know, and at that point we're just saving the ball. They give us a free ball. I think they called a lift on their setter on that particular play, and we keep moving right along to the end of the game here at 13-3. Another hit at Heather, and Heather says, "You're easy again," digs him up again, and gets us to 14.
And they just, Indianapolis just fell into a funk to where nothing was going to go right, and it was just as well for them to get this game over with and go to the next one.
Right, but just at the same token, you can easily stop your own momentum by serving that ball out of bounds or not making that dig or not being where you're supposed to be. Here's Heather again with the game-winning dig right there. You know, I don't know how many digs she just made there at the end of that game, but it was quite a few. And she served the ball in hard and dug the ball. And if you do that, you're gonna be successful in volleyball. No matter how athletic you are or you know, anything, or how tall you are, that kind of thing, you've got to serve tough and you got to dig the ball, and that's, you know, the recipe that Northern Kentucky uses an awful lot this year.
Mm-hmm.
But to finish out Indianapolis, we played real well, and the other games weren't quite that lopsided, but we ended up to winning in 3 and playing pretty well. So it was a good Friday night match for us.
And real quickly, we want to touch on Northern Kentucky then, of course, #1 in the conference. And the team that you got to beat, basically, to claim the conference championship, at least the odds makers would say. So this was a nice little preview for you. And it was 3-2. You dropped it, but it was still a good showing by your young team.
Certainly. And once again, the first time we played them, we lost in 4. And the 3 games we lost badly. And the game we won was very narrow victory, 15-13, good battle. And at this point in the season, once again, we're looking for how much have they improved to how much have we improved. And then when you look at the games we won, we just smoked them. We won like the last 5 points in a row or something to that effect, where your momentum keeps going and you don't stop yourself, and they can't get out of it. I think Northern Kentucky has been prone to digging themselves a hole, or not necessarily digging themselves a hole, but they get stuck in a rut. And they are not known for getting themselves out of a rut. They kind of wait till the other team blows it, type of thing. And so they're just going to serve it in, dig the ball. That's all they do, serve in, dig the ball, and we're a termination type of team.
3-2, though. The Dons lost that one. Northern Kentucky, though, let's just clear it up for the record. 28-2 on the season. They were 9-0 in the regular season in the Great Lakes Valley Conference. Definitely the team to beat in this Saturday and Sunday's Great Lakes Valley Conference tournament at Northern Kentucky. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about that tournament in just a moment.
Talk about unusual. How often do you see transparent televisions?
Americans have more money to spend on leisure activities than ever before.
When possible, children should trick or treat during daylight hours and be accompanied by at least one adult.
A boat, archaeologists believe, is from the time Jesus and his disciples fished on the Galilee.
For best results, fertilize your lawn when it is actively growing.
Many people suffer from allergies. Few understand them.
Hello, I'm Matt DeLong along with Tim Heffron, and we're back to the Coach Tim Heffron Show. Imagine that. We're going to talk about the Great Lakes Valley Conference Tournament. It's coming up next week, or this weekend actually, Coach. And the Valley Dons seeded number 2 in this, and we explained last week how they received the number 2. There was a couple tiebreakers with Ashland and also with Lewis, so it's sizing up. Like, let me give you the seedings real quick, and then we're going to talk about the tournament. The top 6 teams in the conference do go on in this tournament. So Northern Kentucky, of course, as we talked about, got the number 1 seed, and IPFW 2nd. Ashland was 3rd, Lewis 4th, Kentucky Wesleyan 5th, and Indianapolis comes in at number 6. So as you see, as we were talking about just a few minutes ago, Indianapolis and Northern Kentucky in last week. A nice little preview for us heading into this weekend. So, Coach, your feelings, I guess, heading into this tournament. Last year, you won the conference championship when it didn't look like the chances were too great.
Well, I thought last year we were also on a roll at the end of the year. So we had the 3rd seed, but we were the team that was on a roll over the last part of the season, and the other teams were playing well, but they didn't have maybe as much winning going on. If you look at this tournament, it may be a little more even, and Northern Kentucky has to have the slight edge over everybody else because of that same factor. They've just been winning, and they're used to winning type of thing. When you get used to winning, you tend to win more. If you're used to losing, you tend to lose more. You tend to give up sooner, or whatever you want to call it. But as you look at the pairings, we're pretty happy that we're in the other side of the bracket that Northern Kentucky's in, and also we're happy that Ashland is in our half of the bracket and Lewis is in Northern Kentucky's bracket, because we've lost 2 matches to Northern Kentucky and we've lost 2 matches to Lewis. We've won both of our matches against Ashland. And I'm not even going to say that Ashland's going to get by Indianapolis, because that went 5, as we talked about earlier this week. That's a great preview. This past weekend was a great preview for that match. The 3rd seed, Ashland's going to play Indianapolis Saturday morning or afternoon, right in that noontime area, and Lewis will play Kentucky Wesleyan. I expect Lewis is going to beat Kentucky Wesleyan. That's kind of expected at this point. But Ashland is going to have to work real hard to beat Indianapolis in the other one. Later that day, then, the winner of Ashland and Indianapolis is going to play us. And like we've said, we've won both matches against Ashland. We've won both matches against Indianapolis this year. So, you know, we just have to take care of business at that point and go on and win that match to get in the finals. In the other half of the bracket, Lewis, assuming they're going to beat Wesleyan, is going to take on Northern Kentucky, and they just went 5 games the weekend before this last one. However, Lewis has struggled this past weekend. I think they lost to Southern Indiana, which is unusual for them. But Southern Indiana is kind of the amazing team in that they didn't make the tournament. When you look at their overall record, it's 15-14. You know, that's pretty similar to our overall record. It's 17-16. Yet they don't make the tournament, and it's because they lost key matches in the conference play, and they lost a lot of 5-gamers in conference play. They lost a 5-gamer to us. They lost a 5-gamer to Ashland and Lewis, I think. So they've had their opportunities, and they've lost some easy ones though that they should have won, and that's what cost them.
And just recently, also, Tim, they've beaten Northern Kentucky, one of their 2 losses, and they've beaten Lewis.
Right.
One of their losses, one of their few losses against conference teams this year.
Right. So that, you know, they had some power. They have a very good team concept. They're very similar to Northern Kentucky in that they serve the ball in and they play defense. They keep the ball alive. Their goal is to keep the ball alive as long as possible, it seems. You know, they're just a ball control team, whereas we're kind of the other extent. Us and Lewis are the other range in that our goal is to kill the ball. We want to terminate the ball as fast as possible, either through blocking or service aces or actually attacking the ball or whatever you want to call it. We feel the longer the rally goes, the less likely we are to win because of a new team has trouble handling out of the ordinary plays, you know, that we've talked about, the scramble types of plays. We're not real good at that, whereas Northern Kentucky is real good at that, but we're real good at hitting over their block. You know, Amber just went over the outside block constantly in that match. It was just amazing. So athletically, we should pair up real well with Northern Kentucky, and our kids watched the films yesterday, and they're drooling to play them again. You know, they just said, "Wow, you know, how did we lose this match? We should just win. We should win this match." And we kind of went into that match, I thought, with Northern Kentucky a little hesitant. Kind of like, well, you know, they're at this really good record, and we better wait and see what they're doing instead of going out there and say, let's just win. You know, and it took us a game and a half before we realized that, and once we realized that, we were okay.
And I think your team also, Tim, because of the youth of the squad, they think a loss is a loss because that's the same way it was in high school, but they don't realize that some of their losses have been to some of the best volleyball teams in the country this year. Northern Michigan, Michigan Tech, you know, the list goes on. They've also fallen on their face a couple of times, but it's something that you would expect with a youthful team. But now's the time. The freshmen or sophomores, and it's time to step up. And I think that's what you're pointing out, is that even after last weekend, they've still found room for improvement and still stepped their game up a little bit.
Yeah, you know, we've seen a lot of improvement and can still see even more improvement when they watch the tapes. They still know things that they can improve on even further. They've improved a little bit, but they can still make more strides in those areas. So we're pretty happy with the draw as far as we're concerned. Lewis, Northern Kentucky semifinal there. I don't even want to guess at who's going to win. I think Lewis is actually the better team, but Northern Kentucky has, you know, that so-called winning tradition this year, whereas Lewis has maybe struggled here and there. And we're the same way. We have a very athletic team. You'd see a very athletic finals if it was Lewis and us, I think. You're going to see very different play if it's us and Northern Kentucky. It's going to be 2 very different styles of play. And it's just going to be a real interesting weekend.
I think it's also going to be interesting just the fact that IPFW does claim, at least in the past, more conference championships than any other school in our conference. And I think that just might play a role in this weekend's GLVC conference tournament. A lot of pride at stake for the Mastodons this weekend. Stay tuned. We're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit about some of that pride and tradition that'll be carried out this weekend. We're going to have more right after this.
Check it out!
The campus has it all.
Learn it, or work it, or play it, just do it. It's a cool place. Call now! Go to work, go to school, go ahead.
Welcome back to the Tim Heffron Show. I want to thank you, finally, though, for tuning in to us all season long. We got one more show. That'll be next week, Thursday at 7 o'clock. We want you to stay tuned. We're going to have a season recap for you, so please make sure that you're on hand for that. But right now, we're going to talk about, we just mentioned before the break, we've got a lot of pride heading into this tournament. IPFW volleyball stands alone in the Great Lakes Valley Conference, even with the many years of this tournament before we entered the conference. But we still stand alone with the most conference championships, I believe, 7 of them. And your team does have a little bit of pressure as far as what the former alumni may want coming out of this
certainly.
match.
Yeah, they're like you mentioned, we've won 7, and I believe joining the conference 10 years ago, about somewhere right in there. I think they've won 7 of 9. Maybe they've been in 9. IPFW's been at 9 times, 9 in the conference a year for 9 years in a row, and you win 7 of those years. You know, that's pretty heavy tradition. You know, you're expected, or your alumni who built those kinds of things up expect certain things to happen once they've put in X amount of sweat in the early going, because they had to build it up from nothing. Once you get it built up, then as an alumni, you expect things to continue in those kind of directions. And so yeah, there's some serious pride as an IPFW volleyball player or involved with the program, being a coach or whatever, fan or whatever. You have a lot of history behind you, and so that history usually helps you in that you just expect things to happen, and this is the way we've always done this, and we've always beaten this team, and you beat them again, and you don't even think twice about it. It's always the key is trying to get your freshmen or your new people, transfers, whoever they are, and assimilating them into that tradition, and assimilating into the mindset they're supposed to win, and that they're supposed to play well, and that they perform at a high level, and that this to them is not just a volleyball game. It's almost a way of life. It means a lot to them, and it's a big part of their lives, and so that's always been the trick. And when you bring in this many new people like we did this year, then it's really hard to get them into that mold. It'll be a lot easier next year, as we won't add quite as many people. But I think the new people, has taken them this whole year to figure that out, and I think they start to see that, and as they talk to alumni at matches and things like that, they start to get that feeling from people that, hey, this is not just another volleyball team.
Well, let's talk about some of those young people, because not to say that your foundation for this team is freshmen, but it's pretty close. I mean, as far as, you know, who gets a lot of the playing time and who contributes greatly. And I want to point out a few people in particular. Maybe you give me your impressions on where they have been and how far they've come on the season. Amy Lubin, she was benched midway through the season, and she still came back and earned her starting setter position back. And then also Amber Borney started off the season on the bench, and now she's one of the top kill getters in the Great Lakes Valley Conference. And also Andy Reichart, one of the highest percentage hitters that we've had here in a long time. So maybe concentrate on them and point out a few more people.
Well, I think, you know, there was just a ton of pressure on the setting position, you know, as we enter the season, because there's no backup. There's not been anybody trained in that position, and Jill was the last setter of this team, and so it's almost unfair to expect somebody, a freshman, to come in, whoever, to come in and handle the quality and the amount of mental stability it takes to run our complex of an offense. It's just a lot to expect somebody who's never dealt with audibles before during a play to be able to deal with it now, you know, and or handling the whole play calling set and things like that, and making them do all that, let alone just performing their own skill or whatever that is. But in Amy's position, of course, it's setting. She's made quite a few strides in being able to communicate with her teammates, and also her set selection has improved, although it can get better. And she's still struggling a little bit on location sometimes here and there. But she is so athletically gifted that she should grow into those problems, and those problems should take care of themselves, because her athleticism should allow her, once she figures out that she can do it, her to set the ball more consistently than she's doing right now. And so she has made some significant improvements, and she's got a ways to go yet. And there's no quick fix to making a setter. It just takes a lot of time and hard work in that position. It's just, that position has to be consistent over and over, and they can't waver. It's just not in the job description. You don't get to be a flaky type of hitter where you can hit one out and hit one in and your team goes on. The set has to be there every time. Amber, you know, her greatest gift is she can jump so well, and she's already tall, that she goes right over blockers. Every block that we face, she can go over. And again, so for her, it's consistency. How often can she have the ability to hit over the block every time? Can she do that every time? And if she does that every time, she's going to be very successful. She is going to be a major, maybe the best outside hitter we've ever had here at IPFW, simply because she can touch 9-8. And we probably haven't had an outside hitter who can do that before. And so because she has that ability, if she chooses to practice enough and to be consistent enough and to work hard enough, because she really has needed to learn how to work at the right level in college, she could be very good and has made some improvements. But just as we were watching films the other day, she still makes some of those high school types of mistakes when the ball's not next to her. I'm talking about when the ball's away from her. She can see it on the tape, and she knows, and it's just learning. And again, no quick fix there either. You've got to do it, and you've got to practice it, do it, and do it, and do it. Andy Reichart's just done a great job. She's just done a great job with handling the middle, and Amy, and luckily they've worked together before so that they can feed off each other, but it's been tough on her because the sets have not always been where they should be for middle hitters, and if they aren't for middle hitters, your middle hitters are in big trouble. They can't adjust once they're in the air, you know, and it's something else for an outside hitter to adjust to a bad set. But if you're in the middle and you get a bad set, you're in deep trouble, basically. And so Andy has just done a whale of a job this year for us.
Coach, good luck coming up in the conference tournament this weekend. Hopefully got some good news when we come back here and film the show next week. I want to remind you that next week is going to be our final show. It's going to be a season wrap-up, and we hope you're there. It's going to be a special show. And look forward to hopefully introducing a new Great Lakes Valley Conference champion to you. It's this Saturday and Sunday. Make sure you check the newspapers this weekend and see how the Volleydons do. I'm Matt DeLong for Coach Tim Heffron. Thanks for joining us here on the Tim Heffron Show. Good evening and welcome to this final edition of the Tim Heffron Show. I'm Matt DeLong along with Coach Tim Heffron, and we're going to be talking IPFW Volleydon Volleyball. Special show here tonight. GLVC Championship won last weekend. We want you to stay tuned. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the season and the recruiting year. Stay tuned.
This is the increasingly competitive world we live in, and this is the country we want ahead of the competition. These are the people we'll be depending on to keep this country ahead of the competition. These are the colleges and universities we're relying on for the people we're depending on to keep this country ahead of the competition. So if you want America to stay #1 in the world, do something about it. Give to the college of your choice.
Check it out!
The campus has it all.
Learn it, or work it, or play it, just do it. It's a cool place. Call now! Go to work, go to school, go ahead.
Welcome back to the show. Matt DeLong with Coach Tim Heffron. And last weekend, just another fabulous weekend for the history of IPFW volleyball, as the Volleydons finished the season with 2 wins at the Great Lakes Valley Conference Championships in Highland Heights, Kentucky. That was hosted by Northern Kentucky, defeating the host in the championship. We're going to show you some footage of that coming up in just a few moments. But I want to right now take it to the coach. And Tim, congratulations. 2 years in a row. You've been a head coach for 2 years. You've come away with the conference championship 2 years straight. We'll get into the reasons why and everything, but first your thoughts and obvious pride you have in your program right now.
Yeah, we're just real pleased with our I wouldn't call it a turnaround, but our progress throughout the year. We really did work hard in practice and constantly pushing people to get better. Getting our team better. I just have to think that all of the history and pride involved with the IPFW volleyball program is always going to figure into the match when it's a critical match. For us, the conference tournament championship, and once you get into 14-14, that kind of tradition, along with the competitive practices that we had this year, just will get us over the top when it comes down to 14-14 type of score. So I was just real happy and told the kids, all you have to do is put yourself in a position to win. You don't worry about winning the game, just get us to 13 or 14. If we can get to 13-14, our program and our training will take over at that point. Just get us there. get us into a position to win, and that's what we did. And once we did that, things took care of themselves.
Well, we talked last week, Coach, about how the Mastodons fought to get into that number 2 seed, and not really a fight, but some confusion in the seeding. So you went in the number 2 seed and took on the winner of the Indianapolis-Ashland game. So why don't you take us from there?
Right. We were watching Ashland and Indy play earlier in the day on Saturday, and took notes on both teams. All of our players had responsibilities in the scouting of that, along with the earlier scouting that we had done on both teams, and really formulated a nice game plan against Ashland, who eventually won against Indy. Indy did not play very well. Ashland played really well. They were looking very strong, beat them in 3. And on the other side of the bracket, we didn't watch the match, but Lewis beat Wesleyan in 4, and that's Wesleyan's first appearance in the conference tournament, which is a tribute to their program and how far they've come. And so basically it was come down to the final 4 top seeds into the semifinals. And we played Ashland. Ashland came out just smoking. They were just on top of the world, walking on water, couldn't do anything wrong, and we were just kind of hanging back. We weren't down or anything, but they were just playing really well, and they beat us 15-5 in that first game. We hit 0%, I think, in the first game, and they hit 250. So they're playing well, and they're forcing us to make bad mistakes and that kind of thing. So they just really played well that first game. But we knew it was just a game, and we've rarely lost to Ashland, but they are a good team, and we knew they were going to be a good team. We were not playing well. We weren't getting our game plan done. We were not executing the things we had to do to get it going. In the second game, though, it was a complete turnaround. All of a sudden, we could do no wrong, and they were struggling. They still hit 139 as a team in that second game, but we hit 381. We just came out, said, okay, you've fired the first shot, and we're going to return fire now, type of thing, and we just blew their doors off 15-4. So which sets up that pivotal third game. Usually can have a major effect on the outcome of a match once you're tied 1-1. And it was a heck of a game. It went back and forth. It was long. Both teams played well. They hit 289 as a team, and we hit 262. Very even as far as that goes. They just got us on some passing problems at the end of the game, I think, and they won 15-12. They just ran away with that momentum there, but we're not really worried yet. We've seen this position before in big matches.
And you also have the advantage, so Tim, you've beaten them twice during the year, and
yeah.
Your ladies have the upper hand somewhat.
Psychologically, we do, and April Bear, hats off to her, because she really came to play in that match and played really well for us. She hit 214, 9 kills, 3 errors. She always plays well against Ashland, and Ashland always kind of cringes against April. And as the game wore on, April started to see more and more sets on the outside. And at critical junctures of games, as we got into it here in the 4th game, when it's 11-11 or something like that, we set the ball to April, and she put down some nice kills at the end of the games, and we won that 4th game 15-11, and then went into the 5th game rally score. And as you know, anything can happen in rally score. And I thought we came out and played our game. We were playing our game plan by that time. It takes us a while to get used to a team, but we started playing with our game plan, and they were not playing as well. They only hit 111 in the 5th game, and we hit 429, and we had no errors, 9 kills, no errors, 21 attempts. It's hard to beat a team when you're that on offensively.
In rally scoring.
In rally scoring, and we beat them 15-9, and even at the end of the juncture of the game, we were up substantially 13-6 or something like that. and then we serve 3 in the net right in a row, boom, boom, boom. You know, and then you're wondering, like, hey, what just happened here? Why are we doing this now all of a sudden? You know, maybe they're pressing for a little too much, going a little too hard at the serve for an ace or whatever. But once again, other things took over that may have an effect on us earlier in the year, but we, like we were talking earlier on an earlier show, we seem to have the ability now to not shoot ourselves in the foot. And even though, you know, serving into the net 3 times, that's going to hurt you, right after that, we would side out. And so it wouldn't be that 4 errors in a row type of thing. And that's the key to why we were successful this weekend.
Well, then they took you 5 games. So you get by Ashland. It's a semifinal. It's a 6-team tournament. You had to bye the first round. You get through the semifinals. The fact still remains, Coach, you're going into the championship against a team that you had lost twice to, a team that is 28-2 on the year. And
right.
They have the 2nd highest winning percentage in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a distinctive psychological advantage, the same one that Ashland had over your ball club going into or that you had over Ashland going into the semifinals. Then you have 3 freshmen in your starting lineup, people that have never been there before, and you can throw last year's championship out the door in the GLVCs. A little bit concerned going into the final?
Well, sure. Anytime you, as an overall picture of the whole year, anytime you add that many freshmen to your team, plus up the level of play, you're looking at kind of a recipe for disaster for a year. I mean, potentially. You know, Lewis did not play well against Northern Kentucky, and Northern Kentucky looked real good in their semifinal match. And, you know, we were saying, hey, we've been here before. We've won 7 out of 10 GLVC championships. They've won 1, and that was like 10 years ago. So we had a little upper edge, I think, that way.
The pride of IPFW volleyball then went into the championships. We're going to come back and take a look at that footage right after this break. Welcome back to the Tim Heffron Show. We're going to get right into the Great Lakes Valley Conference Championship game. It was last Sunday, and just a couple days from our taping, so the excitement is still very new for Coach Heffron. We're going to show you some footage coming up in just a few moments. We're going to talk about the first 3 games. It went 4. Of course, IPFW was defeated by Northern Kentucky twice before, so a definite psychological advantage for Northern Kentucky playing on their home floor. And another advantage for them, Tim, you had the deck stacked against you.
Certainly did. You know, they have those 2 wins. They have their home crowd. We have to travel. They don't. All those kinds of things. But once again, we have the experience as a program, as a tradition. We have that experience of winning in big matches. And that's not to say that they don't. That's to say that they are learning that. They are trying to get to that stage. As the match started out, they started playing out pretty well. You know, they're hitting 242 in the first game, and we're only hitting 118. It actually was a very even match. They jump out to an early lead. We catch up to them. But then all of a sudden our offense went in the tank. Amy, for some reason, couldn't set the ball to the hitters we needed to get the ball to. And our game plan was very similar to Ashland's game plan in that we want to get the ball to our middle hitters and our right side hitter because of where they set their blockers up. They leave those areas open. And so that's the areas that we need to exploit offensively. And as people would know, IPFW is known for offense. We're maybe not the best defensive team in the world, but we are known for our complex offense and basically siding out with teams and just waiting them out till they can't play with us anymore. So the first game we're playing pretty well, and we had trouble with our offense, so they basically wind up winning 15-7 when it was about 7-7. Things didn't go right for us, passing, setting, whatever, hitting, just everything went wrong. And so we say, like just Ashland, hey, it's just one game, doesn't really matter. We go into the second game, and we're playing pretty well, and we get playing a lot better. In fact, we're hitting 262. They're hitting drops to 200, actually, and we take out more of a lead this time, and we're ahead of them the whole way up there. Ahead even 13-11, and then all of a sudden we get some bad calls going against us, and they're up to 13-13. But like I said, all we need to do is get ourselves into a position to win, and then we pull out the next 2 points on really nice plays by our team and earn those 2 points. And so that evens up the match. It's one apiece now, and then we go into that third pivotal game again.
Gets a little hairy here, doesn't it?
Gets very hairy here. We are playing better. We're now hitting 321 in the third game. And they're dropping to 156 in the third game. So you can see some of the doubt creeping into their minds.
But they still had you on the ropes in that third game.
They had us on the ropes. We got into a sticky point again, just like in the first game, where we're even 7-7 thereabouts, and then all of a sudden they pull ahead, and they take it to 13. They're ahead 13-7, and we call all our timeouts, make subs, do everything we can, and then all of a sudden we start creeping back into it. We get closer and closer, and it's 14-14 again, and all of a sudden, hey, we're 14-14. We know we're going to win again. And that's exactly what happens. We earn the next 2 points, and that gets us a 2-game lead, and then we go into the fourth game, and now we're just pounding the ball. We're hitting 486 as a team. Our middles are pounding the ball, and their hitting is pretty good at 279. They pick it up, but they just can't handle our offense. Andy Reichart and Dottie and Heather, they're hitting, just phenomenal rates.
Well, Reichart, just a career performance for her. 23
kills, and hitting 656, that kind of thing. And so we're going to watch the match here, the last few points of the match, and the celebration after it's over. I believe the score will be 9-7, something like that. Here, we're on this side of the court. Amber just passing that ball there. We set to the right side. And have some trouble hitting it, but they're having trouble picking things up now, and we're ahead 9-7, and we have the momentum at this point. They're mentally in trouble. They've done a lot of substituting, that kind of thing, and Julie goes back to serve, and they have some trouble handling her jump serve here, I believe.
And I think that in part of your strategy, and there's the point, takes it to 10-7. The momentum is definitely swung in your favor. And you've got your serve rotation set up, so you have the 2 jump servers following each other. You've got, Julie Parrott here, and then Amber Borney will come up here in a second, and we'll see her success as well. But
and there they go. They're having trouble. They get a bad pass off of Julie, and they can't handle the ball. Score is now 11-7, and now they they get the substitutions going because they're out of timeouts. I think at this point they're struggling. And this is where our tradition can take over, where the doubt has firmly been put into their minds, and they're just not ready for it. Great dig there by Julie. The ball outside to April. April, unfortunately, doesn't take a real good swing at the ball there. Like sometimes earlier in the match, she really took some nice swings to save us when we were down, or we were yeah, when we were down in that 7-13 game, April really makes some great swings to hit the ball hard and score it for us. And here we go with another free ball for us, and there's our middle attack again. And Andy Reichart, they just put 2 blockers on her the whole match, and they could not stop her. It didn't matter. She's just so big and powerful that she just goes through, around, over, wherever 2 blockers are. It just doesn't matter. And so Amy knew all she had to do was get the ball to our middles, and they take it from there. You know, Andy Reichart playing defense there, just a great dig. So, you know, things are just going great at this point. Julie hits a back row attack there and scores on it. They don't block our back row attack ever, and I'm really surprised they go into a free ball formation, and we're hitting the ball at them. I mean, I think we should take that as much as we can, and we do. We hit a lot of back row against them. Unfortunately, Andy ends up sailing a ball there.
Still got a point, though, 12-7.
We get us a point there at 12-7. So we're a 5-point lead, 3 points away from the end of the game. They're making their substitutions. They're switching from a 5-1 offense into a 6-2 offense, back to a 5-1 offense. I don't think they know where exactly they're going. And Kathy comes into the game at this point as a defensive specialist for Andy, and they're serving. And we run this 31 to Dottie here, I believe. There it is, and they block at that time. And Amy makes a great play. Unfortunately, they call a shirt net on her. They call a shirt net, and it's an incidental net. And the volleyball community is heavily looking into whether or not they want to continue calling incidental nets, nets that have no bearing on the play. It's not like her hand hit the net. It was actual, the shirt around her waist hit the net. It has no bearing on the play. Maybe in a few years that call won't be made.
And
but
when you're on the road, it is going to be called, too.
Yeah, and there's another one of those calls that's tough for us, but hey, we just got to struggle through it here. And so they get themselves a point, and they fall apart, though. April hits it off the block, and they just can't handle it. So Amy goes back to serve. We're up 12-8 at this point.
Well, Coach, it's really got to just make you happy sitting here watching this. This is the final few points of winning a GLVC championship for the 2nd straight year. And you can look at this and say that every girl on the floor right now will be back in your program next year, minus April Bear.
And Kathy, yeah. They're the 2 seniors on the team, and we wanted them out on the floor in their final matches of their careers and let them have an opportunity to perform, at this point.
And savor.
Yeah, and Heather just hits a great shot over the block and down. Those are the kind of shots that maybe not your stud most athletic person has to make, but somebody who's maybe a little more vertically challenged like Heather, and she comes through with a shot like that. That's a big swing for us. And April serves an ace right there. She serves the ball right on the back line, gets us to 13. Now we're up 13-8. It's just a real good serve by April, and she goes back and serves another one up here for us, and here we go. Kathy almost had that dig, and that's kind of maybe one of the only regrets that she'd have on her last opportunity to dig a ball. Is to come up with that dig, but hey, it's not an easy thing to do. You can't always come up with the digs every single time, but she makes a good effort on it, and we get the ball out there again, and Julie just takes a great swing cross court, and you can just see we're walking with confidence, we're talking, we're cheering, it's like, hey, this match is over. It doesn't matter what they do. We control our own destiny, and we can say that because we have the athletes to back that kind of thing up. We can lose this match or we can win this match at this point. And Carrie goes in, and they try to set middle, and Andy and Julie just stuff their middle blocker to get us to 14. And here we go with I believe the final point of the match coming up here.
Carrie Herdman serving for the championship.
Serving at 14-8.
What are you thinking right here, Tim?
I'm thinking I'm real confident in Carrie serves it in pressure situations. She's done it all year. They hit the ball, it goes out of bounds, and we have a little celebration.
There it is.
People are a little excited, it seems, there. And
2nd straight year, and at this point, there you are on about the right middle, and you're going to keep your hair.
No, I'm going to keep my hair later on in this film here, they try to douse me with some cold water. They only get a part of me. I saw it coming, and I was able to get out of the way. They still got my back pretty well, and they got our assistant coach, Suzanne Smith, with the water, too. But, you know, that's the price of victory, I guess.
Price of victory.
So we get one of these nice trophies for that weekend.
Second one.
Second one.
Congratulations, Coach. We're going to come back here in just one moment, talk about the recruiting for next year, and wrap things up with Coach Tim Heffron, 1994 Great Lakes Valley Conference volleyball champion.
Talk about unusual. How often do you see transparent televisions?
Americans have more money to spend on leisure activities than ever before.
When possible, children should trick or treat during daylight hours and be accompanied by at least one adult.
A boat, archaeologists believe, is from the time Jesus and his disciples fished on the Galilee.
For best results, fertilize your lawn when it is actively growing.
Many people suffer from allergies. Few understand them.
Welcome back to the Tim Heffron Show, this final segment. Thanks for joining us all year. It's been a great 1994, the Great Lakes Valley Conference Championship. We appreciate you tuning in all season long. Coach, quickly now, let's talk about some of the needs. Your team is extremely young coming into next year. I don't know what you're going to do with recruiting, and there's certain things that we can and can't talk about concerning recruiting. But, Coach, you just have to be very excited about what you have coming back next year, just on the squad right now.
Certainly are. We lose, you know, April and Kathy, but we because of the number of freshmen we were able to recruit this year, our needs are not as huge as they were last year, obviously. And two of the kids we recruited last year are also going to redshirt this year, and so we'll have already two freshmen next year in the class that we've already recruited from last year. So we're really only looking to add two more positions, the two vacated positions by April and Kathy, and what we're obviously looking for is a setter, because Amy is our only setter right now that has been trained at that position for any length of time, and another hitter. And basically what we're looking for in a hitter is the best athletic and competitive attitude and ability left or wherever they are. That's what we want on our squad. I don't care if they're middle or outside or whatever. We want the best athlete we can get. So we're interviewing candidates as we speak and bringing them on campus, and we're just busy trying to nail down some really nice, two nice recruits to give us 4 freshmen for next year.
Well, it is an interview process, Coach, because IPFW is becoming a pretty hot place to play. The hotbed for volleyball in the Midwest, we know it. People are starting to notice all around the state of Indiana and in the Midwest. We're going to wrap things up now. For Coach Tim Heffron, I'm Matt DeLong. Thanks for joining us here all season long on the Tim Heffron Show. We're going to be back in 1995. We want you to be here. Thanks for joining us all year. Thank you.